It's taken out on, so what is it?
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
As long as you're telling me what
All right, as long as the back room, I'll let you in the front. So this is a program funded by LADWP. What we are doing is we are doing demonstration gardens in 15 sites throughout the city of Los Angeles. At each of the sites, we're demonstrating installing a green barrel, taking out the turf, creating a rain garden, and then doing sheet mulching so that you can improve the soil, capture the water, and then clean it as it goes down into the aquifers. We want to be able to get this out to all the different council districts so that you can tell your constituents, so that we can actually host some of these different classes in your council districts. We've done a ton of them in District 2 and 10. We'd love to be able to get to some other areas.
Are you noting Winter Two?
No, I am not.
You are a competitor. You have
I
another grant?
It's with the LADWP, yes.
No, wait. The DWP funds the River Project.
This is separate.
This is not the River Project.
No.
Then the main thing you have to do is to get your information out to people. Don't just talk about the program. We know about the program. Say who you are.
right.
I'm not the River Project. Here's how you contact me.
All right. Okay. I do.
Well, the thing is, get it to Terrence and have him send out by email to this list. See that guy in the door? Let me hold him right now. Have him say, your contact information. He's speaking from everybody's left.
Okay.
You want your contact information.
Thank you.
All lines off.
Everybody knows about this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you very much. Wednesday's deadline. Go with Mid City West, and let's redefine, whatever we do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2015, so it's a 2015 town hall for the 2016 elections. That's a long title, eh? So in your hands, you should have two documents. The first one is a recap of elections 2014. And the second one is just kind of a little agenda that will allow you to take some notes. And so what we're going to do today, how you doing? Greater Wilshire, excellent. So let's go around the room and they're coming around. Let's go around the room and introduce yourself and the neighborhood council. You, young lady, are Sunwin Tahunga. And you, young man, you are
Glen Bailey, North
Northridge East. And you, young man, you are
Tony Wilkinson, Panorama City, and North Hills East.
and North Hills East. And you, you're leaving or staying?
I'm leaving.
But you're still David.
I'm David Sidwick.
And you are
I'm Colette, I'm meeting with Greater Wilshire neighborhood.
Greater Wilshire. And Lydia? Yes, sir. Chris Garcia. So Chris Garcia is with the city clerk of the city of Los Angeles. You may have heard of the city of Los Angeles. Yes. And last year we worked together on the elections, and this year we're working together on the elections, and we'll talk more about that later. Chris is. Are you my counterpart? Are you my nemesis? No, you're my doppelganger? Partner in neighborhood council elections. And so we've had a few meetings, and we've got to start already talking about neighborhood council elections and how we're going to work together to make it even more successful than last time around. And yes, sir, you are?
I'm Randy Waller from Westlake, and this is my last year of neighborhood council. I'm not running.
They all say that, but you know what? One's in, no doubt.
I'm 80 years old next year.
Come on, we've got decades to go. Let's do it. So Westlake North and Westlake South, Randy Waller. Yes, sir.
Jim Summers, Banana Hills North, neighborhood south.
All right, we got a few doubles today, huh? So you guys, North invaded South, or South invaded North, what happened? Okay, all one. Excellent. Yes, sir.
Steve Randall, West Neighborhood Council.
West Hills in the house? Yes, sir.
Bob Roscoff, West Hills.
And you were also the election chair, were you?
No, I wasn't. Our co-chair of our.
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay.
We're on the.
Excellent.
Charles Lane, West City.
Mid-City West?
Frank Wada, Lincoln Heights.
Lincoln Heights? Yes, sir.
Pete Nicholas, stakeholder, Rampart Village.
Rampart? Yes, sir.
Dave Braun, North Hills West.
Yes, sir. And?
William Kuzman, stakeholder, Pick Any Neighborhood Council in the San Fernando
There you
Valley.
go. Just in the San Fernando?
San Fernando Valley.
You have a crossover? Which is an interesting point. We're going to talk about this later, but keep in mind, earlier when we were talking about elections, the woman pointed out that you can vote in the neighborhood council. It's not the same crowd that vote in the regular elections. And so this comes up as a point of confusion quite often. How do I vote? How am I qualified to vote? Live, work, own, participate, but your neighborhood council needs to get quite specific about what seats you vote for. And one neighborhood council was quite upset because they asked the question, can I vote if I belong to a homeowners association active in the neighborhood? Yeah. But that's not a blanket opportunity to vote for every seat unless the neighborhood council is all that large, like West Hills or Coastal San Pedro. Neighborhood councils, it's a simple standard and yet it's like standard. So we'll talk more about that later. But in your hands, you have two sheets. And the first one is a recap of last year's elections, some statistics for you. The second one, if you open it up, let's talk about successes and opportunities, two categories, things that you liked about last year, and then things you think we can do better from last year. And then the second half of today's meeting, we're going to review 8 things. Online voting, bylaw revisions, voters, candidates, election procedures, election committee, outreach committee, and your neighborhood council budget. Always comes down to the money, doesn't it?
Sure does.
So those are 8 beats we'd like to hit as far as moving forward. But what's that? Handouts. So first of all, let's open it up and talk about things you liked about the 2014 elections, or 2012, or 10, or any others, as a matter of fact. But what are the things that you think that neighborhood councils have done well? And walking in the door, we've got Jose, who's working with me in the office right now on elections, and Nancy, who was with us on elections. She was the volunteer coordinator, which, by the way, we had 733 volunteers altogether. 659 registered during the 2014 elections. So, yeah, did you bring them? What? Okay. Which, by the way, were you, the 700 whatever volunteers, and you. So, but thank you very much for all the volunteer work you do making the elections happen. Yes, Mr. Waller.
Frankly, I do not think the 2012 and 2014 elections could have been run any better. The people were great, the administration was great. Everything I could think about those elections was done just about as close to perfection as I could ever imagine. And I thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Anyone else have anything about the 2014 elections that you like? Is there anything you can acknowledge or think of that was a good thing about the neighborhood council elections? Yes.
I thought, at least in my region, that the neighborhood councils really stepped up and did good outreach work.
Yes.
People were enthusiastic.
Yes.
It really energized them, as we hoped, and I think it came through.
Great. Yes, sir.
In following Tony's remark, more people. We had a much significantly larger turnout in our area.
Excellent.
As a result, correct.
So it's on there, the statistics, and by the way, the conversation is big, and it's much bigger than us, but everyone's asking about elections. Why is it in your neighborhood council, your region, the valley, the city of LA, LA County, state of California, United States of America? Why is it that people in other countries turn out to vote and participate and get engaged in greater numbers than us? After all, we're the center of the universe.
We have to offer bribes.
I think so, because the ones we're offering aren't working. Food? Free food. So anyway, that's an ongoing topic, as you heard earlier during the meeting when they were talking about the ballot measure. So So there's lots of folks talking about what can we do to engage, and one particular answer is start local, start young. And if you engage folks on neighborhood councils, perhaps they'll participate in the next election and start thinking about larger things like the city council, the city, the county, maybe the state, because there is a sense of disenfranchisement that occurs somewhere, somehow, and it just seems to grow. Yes, sir.
Well, the reason why there is a higher percentage of interest and therefore participation in other countries is because the outcome of those elections affects people personally much more so. We are disengaged from government at all levels. We don't give a shit, so we don't vote.
Okay, so that's an interesting point, because we were able to do something during the election, which is to cull information. When I just voted in the election, it was an anonymous experience. You know, the precincts are in someone's garage, in someone's storage shed, in someone's glove compartment. You know, I mean, so with neighborhood council elections, that survey data is kind of significant. 8,000 people had an opinion on something. And so in terms of disenfranchisement or disengagement, in terms of people feeling like it matters, not only were you voting for a neighborhood council election, but you were also leaving some opinions. We gave those to the city council members. And it was kind of interesting because, you know, we always think we know what the top things are, you know, whether it's sidewalks, trees, water, public safety, youth, etc. But it's not. And it varies from neighborhood council to neighborhood council. But the city council members were kind of interested because they got it straight back from their neighborhood council that on this day, X number of people said it's this. So I'll put a survey, even though no one brought it up, because it is something I think that we can build on, so that the election isn't an end, but an opportunity to get some better feedback from folks. Anything else you like? Yeah.
The vote by mail worked really well.
Vote by mail, okay. So the vote by mail was administered by the city clerk. It was self-affirmation only, because otherwise the exchange would have been apply, get something that says send me your driver's license, send it, get it confirmed or certified or verified. You know, so it's going to drag it out. And because the cycle is kind of tight for the vote by mail, it's in that last 30 days. I mean, you can register, you can ask for it earlier, but nothing can really happen until we have something happening. So it's after the candidate filing ends that we can create the ballots, right, that can go out. So anyway, the vote by mail is the city clerk. Yes?
We found a very interesting situation with vote by mail.
Yeah.
If you have a candidate who is a teacher at a school, you're assured of 40 or 50 mail-in votes at least.
Which is a powerful way to get your candidates campaigning. And the thing to remember if you are interested in doing vote by mail is it's a great way to knock on doors. I'm running, or a teacher, so I'm running on the candidate, I love your support. You can't accept it back. Okay, they've got to mail it in themselves. Some folks even put the stamp on it. Right? And one neighborhood council just mailed it to everybody, the application.
We did.
Yeah, so Westville's mailed it to everyone that they knew. Candidates can also push it. So candidates who live in large buildings put them down by the mailbox, and so we get a lot from the same address. But yet the candidate can't touch them. And one candidate said, I know I did better. I dropped them off myself. Okay, well, didn't do that. So candidates can't receive them back, but you can certainly push them. So you can encourage people to fill out the form. Anything else? What'd you like
What did I like?
about the elections?
Oh, I liked the energy of working together with the region, with the outreach efforts. I liked the higher voter turnout. You know, we put a lot out there on the table, and we didn't get absolutely everything, but the efforts that we did got us to the higher result than in the past.
So I went to a concert and an election broke out. So some of the Hunga had a fun festival. So there was a barbecue, and there was and it was the youth too that were performing, which is interesting because you get their parents, and you get the friends from the school, and you get the students. So what happened is their event took place in the park. It ended at the exact same time that the polls opened. Coastal San Pedro is thinking about doing a community event, but with the candidates at the band shell, and the elections will be over there, so it's an outdoor event. But the opportunity to make it a community event, because if you have a candidates forum, that's way cool, but typically that's a week in advance, those are insiders. But if you've got, Lincoln Heights had that's a busy street there. Other neighborhood councils pick locations where there's already action going on. In other words, go where the fish are. Gelson's on Franklin in Hollywood. They actually had the highest turnout, but it was lit up. There was a DJ, there was a tent, so people stopped by wondering what's going on. Mid-City West did theirs in the farmers market. This is a couple years ago, the old farmers market, and it was a little white picket fence that was set up down by where the train ends behind it. And so folks would stop by, and they had a section for you could go talk to the candidates. East Hollywood had a section for the candidates. So if you'd like to go hang out, you had a section for the candidates out. Oh yeah, yours was at the, that was cool. There was an event all day long, but it was at the house where the woman wrote Gone with the Wind. And so they showed Gone with the Wind. That was cool. How you gonna top that? Well, there's a lot of movies written in West Hills, right?
Yeah.
All those writers there. But anyway, there was an event, and there was an opportunity to talk to folks, and now you're informed. Because I met the candidate, and I talked to the other candidate, and then I chatted, but it has to be far away from the elections, okay? So your election procedures, when you do your election procedures, your neighborhood council can talk about what you're comfortable with, and what you'd like to do on the day of the election. To engage folks and to reward folks and to make it go a little bit beyond the ballot box. Like how can you engage them and get them involved? Are there other opportunities? Some neighborhood councils had other city departments at their fair. You did. I know you had other tables. And so when you go there, you can actually do some business. Like how cool would it be to talk to sanitation about why we can't clean that alley? And so other stuff could take place. Yes, sir.
One of the things was the food. Great food just attracts people to the elections.
Yeah. So we did have some neighborhood councils that Rampart Village had a great one, and there was a fight that broke out between two bands because one kept playing and the other one wanted to get on, which is kind of cool. It wasn't a real fight, but what was kind of cool is they had entertainment stacked up and they had a guy grilling all day long, and so there was stuff going on in the parking lot. Outside the polling place. Anyway, so regional efforts, I'm going to put down, so Cindy, some of what you're talking about though is making it fun.
Oh, yeah.
So the regional events, Rally in the Valley was a regional event, and so some regions have a big kickoff event because they're going after candidates. And at the Rally in the Valley, the neighborhood councils all had a corner of the room. In Reseda was a rally also at the American Legion. And so if you happen to show up at the event, the neighborhood councils, some of the Hunga had a table, all the neighborhood councils in Region 1, for example, had a table. And then the other thing Region 1 did was invite some local leadership, like Monica from the school board, and other, as a draw. And sometimes when people come and hear someone's story about how they got involved, they might feel inspired to get involved, and then there's an opportunity because they can sign up right then, in face-to-face rather than online and abstract. So regional efforts and events. Okay, anything else you like, Lydia? Did you like anything?
Oh, I was overwhelmed. Nothing. One thing comes to mind. There was tons of stuff.
So Lydia went to 98 neighborhood council elections.
I think so.
So she pretty much hit them all, and. And then some of them had some interesting opportunities. Translation. So we had one neighborhood council that felt like 4 neighborhood council elections because had to be 4 lines because of the languages. So we do, it is Spanish and English, all the materials, and then if neighborhood councils want interpreters, it's by request. And then if you do request interpreters, there should be an outreach plan for that language because one eager beaver said, well, I'll take every language. Right? Well, do you have a plan? is there a community that you're reaching out to? Because there's a lot of languages. So Spanish and English are by default. There's about a dozen that we are prepared for. The city clerk provided some translators for, interpreters for us, for example, because on staff you keep some languages represented. And then other languages, there's now a little Bangladesh in down below East Hollywood. So there's some other communities that are growing in terms of civic engagement. And so if a neighborhood council wants to target a community and say we want to get them involved, let us know. That should be part of your outreach plan so that we can properly provide the translation and the interpretation. And it's 2 steps, because a lot of neighborhood councils simply ask for the materials in that language. So the ballots can be there in X number of languages, but you want an interpreter. Those aren't the same thing. So we have, I think, 10 languages, is that right?
Probably 11.
On paper, and interpreters by request. So you might have, so for example, Westwood has Persian ballots, but they don't have a Persian interpreter. So there were those cases. And then, for example, Historic Cultural wants to actually have an interpreter there to direct people in 2 different forms of Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, Korean. I think they had the most translation. East Hollywood, I think, had 4. Armenian, Tagalog, right? Spanish. Yeah. So that you have 4 languages spoken at the ballot place. Okay, so I'll put that, even though no one kind of brought it up, but we do have that kind of commitment to. Anything else you like? Glenn, what about you? Like anything?
I liked, well, you've already got it on there, so.
Okay, so like is an emotion, it's a feeling, but the other thing is there's data. So, and the data is, we're in a city of 4 million people. 31% of our voters took a survey. Our voters were up 29%, our candidates were up 25%, and our volunteers were up 44.8%. So, bye-bye, Mr. Waller.
My blood sugar is going down, I'm sorry.
All right. What happened to catering? Well, we'll see ya. So in terms of the big 3, voters, candidates, and volunteers, they are up, and up. And so up's a good direction to go. And then the results were about half and half, which is encouraging that there are folks getting involved. So there was a balance of the veterans and the balance of new folks getting involved. So folks can't say they didn't have an opportunity to get involved, and folks can't say that those that were that had some ones that were institutional knowledge weren't represented and aren't a part of the process. So it's about 50-50 on the results of candidates that prevailed. So anything else? Last call, going once. I see you're standing.
Tired of the city.
Yeah, me too. Anyone else? Anyone else? All right. How about things you think that we could do better this time around? So we're going to call this opportunities. What would you like to see done better? Gooder?
Candidate eligibility.
And what does that mean?
Well, we had candidates that nobody even knew who they were, or that they were stakeholders or lived there or anything. So I think that needs to be.
What would you like to see?
Maybe a introductory event for all candidates, not just putting an online sign up here.
Do you want it to be a requirement?
Yes.
You would like a requirement that all candidates must appear at something?
Yes.
Okay. So a required form. Form, yeah. Would you like the department to require that?
I don't know. Most of these types of things have been driven by the neighborhood councils themselves, all want to function differently. So that's something to discuss. But
Well,
The
you
answer,
have,
yes, for now, yes.
well, you have two choices, well, you have three choices. One, the department requires it. Two, Constitution Act, no, two would be the neighborhood councils require it. And three would be that, it's a suggestion, which means, you know, we're back where we were, which is they don't have to show up or participate. But the second one would be the neighborhood councils, and some neighborhood councils include in their election procedures references to participation. For example, Palms has to get a petition, right? Venice, you have to love barbecue chicken, right? No, some neighborhood councils have some specific, I think Mar Vista also has a requirement that that the candidates have to have a petition of local stakeholders. I can't think of a neighborhood council that requires participation in an event. But for example, maybe they don't, and the three levels of participation would be, one, are you going to require a photo? Two, are you going to require a statement? And number three, are you going to require participation in a forum, an event, right?
Oh, or in orientation, I mean, you know what you're getting into. We have people that run also for office and then don't never show up.
You don't have to. Right now, you don't have to.
I know.
So I'm just looking for you. If you want to propose it, you don't have to be positive. You might want them to, because we said, hey, how about no dirty fighting? Because we think that's great, you know. How about we all play nice? I'd love to make that a requirement. But right now it's not. And so if you want, what are your suggestions for requirements? You want to make it a requirement that they take an orientation? Okay.
I say this because the credibility.
You don't justify that. If you want it, I'll put it up here.
Okay.
I'll put extra cheese on your sandwich.
No problem.
If that's what you like. So just so we're clear then, that part of the process would be, I'd like to file this paper as a candidate. You need to sit down for 30 minutes and listen to you need to do a code of conduct, you need to do ethics, you need to do funding. If you'll be part of the city family, you need to abide by these rules. Are you clear? Then no one gets to say, I have no idea. I understand what you want. You don't have to sell me on it. But this would then need to either be a suggestion or a policy. Right? And so then now the commission's going to get involved.
Okay.
Or not, it could be an election.
Recommendation.
Well, but the election procedures can be done without going to the commission, right? Because by statute or by ordinance, the election procedures are part of the authority of the department. And so they can be administered as part of the administration. It just needs to be black and white or gray. You don't get to be both.
I want to put cheese on Cindy Sadler because actually I heard your question differently than what you suggested. You said, who are these people? They just seem to come out of nowhere. One of the things is if you run for election in the general election, you just have to say, I live here at this address. Whereas in our elections, you become mystically a business person, whatever you are. But you don't, and particularly for self-defined stakeholders, community interests, you don't say what it is. You know, you just verify it. Maybe, I'm only throwing it out here, somebody needs to say, I am a stakeholder in the North Hills East Neighborhood Council because I belong to the Community Police Advisory Board, which includes that community. So that people know how you got qualified, because a lot of the complaints I hear are about that issue.
Yes.
It's a little different, but so Tony wants candidate filing open. That's
I'm
a
not sure that
candidate.
they have to, not the document necessarily, but just the statement.
The information on that candidate filing form, because there's 4 statements that you can make. And some people make all 4 of them, right? You don't get 4 ballots. You might get 4 slices of cheese on your sandwich, but at the barbecue. But you live, work, own, and it can be you own property that's separate, right? And then participate in an ongoing and substantial. So I belong to the Kiwanis Club. I own that property over there in the corner. I work over that direction, and I live back over here. All four in the neighborhood. So then that would be the public information, right? You don't need to see my EIN number or anything. But the candidate qualification, which is not the same as a photo, a statement, participate in a meeting, and sit through an orientation, but it's certainly a different one. Candidate qualification. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? Okay?
Because the person,
Huh?
because we don't personally review those, that's done by an independent body.
Yeah.
And they've gotta have it.
Okay, that's good.
So related to
Glenn?
that, related to that,
And then, yep.
it needs to be available in a timely manner within the time frame to challenge, in case a mistake was made. Because by the time mistakes were found, or alleged mistakes were found, it was past that time window. So I think we need to figure out a way to do that. I personally concur that there were 2 people that were qualified for one of the neighborhood councils who were not eligible to be candidates in the seat in which they actually were listed on the ballot.
Steve, you're great at your catering.
Catering's here.
So in order for that process,
You're allowed to.
that's all the mayor gave you?
So Glenn, let's boil that down. So candidate, verification, timeline.
It's related to the qualification.
Right.
Yeah, you
So
don't,
the
you don't
candidate,
want to, you want to do it before the deadline to challenge, and certainly before the ballots are printed, and you certainly want to do it before they're elected and seated, which is what happened.
so maybe we can do it before they file.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe
that was a
you,
joke.
or maybe you extend the deadline to challenge, you know, because in other words, they work together. Tell us how you qualified, and then you have X days to challenge.
Well, then,
Yes, sir.
But as long as you tie it to the Public Records Act, and people have to wait 10 days or more to get the information, which is what happened, you blow that deadline. So we need to figure out a way in which people who are, and these are usually people who are focused on their communities, I'm not sure if it's the same thing where Cindy was coming from, but they want to make sure that the people who are candidates are running for the right seats, that they're eligible for that right seat in those neighborhood counties where it's not in all that large situation.
Okay, Mr. Nicholas.
I want to second what Glenn said, but I want to address a different part of what he just said, and that is also, once an election is held and people are nominally elected, I found the process for challenging and verifying the kind of fall down at the ankles. And I want to have a more professional, more concrete, more specific, more documented process for handling the challenge. But the reason, my point, in addition to Glenn's, I don't know if my experience is unique or if it's exceptional, but I have experience in multiple elections where people who had never come to a meeting, filed to run for the office, never showed up for a candidate's forum, were on the ballot, sometimes got elected, and then in the next 2, 3, or 4 months, when they discovered what it was all about, either didn't come to meetings or resigned or had to be removed. And I jokingly said, but now I seriously say, I believe that one of the qualifications for registering for as a candidate, assuming that all neighborhood councils maintain sign-in sheets, is that you've attended at least one monthly meeting of your neighborhood council in the last 6 months. And I just think that people who can't be bothered to come to a neighborhood council meeting shouldn't be on the ballot, because those people who have never come, don't come to the forum, get elected, and then don't show up or drop off or resign, it just causes a lot of churning. And I think it would be a good rule that you have to have attended a regular board meeting within the last 6 months to become a council, to become a candidate.
Okay, so I've got that down now. To recap, there's a suggestion that there are some required things of candidates. And if they're gonna be required, it's either gonna be the department requiring or the neighborhood council. But so far, we've got photo, statement, participation in the election process, which would be the forum.
Let's call it candidate forum.
Orientation, which is to sit down to make sure they understand what's expected of them and agree to funding, ethics, code of conduct, blah, blah, et cetera. And then, of course, now you'd like to add that they've attended, that there's an attendance participation standard.
That they've come to at least one board meeting prior to becoming a candidate.
Okay, great. So we've got that down, and it's a suggestion unless it's required by somebody, and there's two groups that could require. Yes, sir? But before we go, so Grace Lewis here, our general manager.
I just wanted to address that really quickly. I know in the past, the attorney has said that meeting attendance requirement, that we cannot have that. So, I can follow back up with them, but just want to give you a heads up that that requirement has not been held up.
Have they told us any reason?
It's, I will have to talk to them again about their reasoning, because this was, I remember years ago that they pretty much said, that I know neighborhood council wanted to put that in their bylaws, and they rejected it.
Well, it excludes new people who just discover us. Why would you exclude people who really,
Exactly.
just screw it? Can I add one thing, Stephen? Oh, I'm sorry, somebody else.
So we're going around. So we're
waiting.
I got you.
I've been waiting here for a
I
while.
got you. I know. We're all here.
Following
Can't
up
go in
on
order, though.
this issue of challenges, I'm personally aware of one person that committed a blatant violation at the election venue, and it was challenged, and absolutely no action was taken on that challenge.
Okay. So I've got challenges and, want to stay on challenges for a bit?
Wait, we're talking
No,
about
I wanna go-
two different challenges.
Yeah,
I want to stay
okay.
on the topic we're on.
I got two different challenges.
Yeah, but
I'm just taking your suggestions. I got you, Mr. Guzman. We're going around. So you had a challenge.
Somebody challenged a candidate who did get elected for a blatant violation of the 100-foot rule.
Okay.
This place, the person literally stood right in front of the door, entrance to the voting room, for over 30 minutes.
Okay.
And nothing was done about it. The challenge was just dismissed.
We had one come into the voting room and hand out materials.
Yeah. I mean, why do we have rules if we don't enforce them?
So let me go around.
Well, my point is, you separate those into pre and post-election challenges so that we know.
Yep.
Qualification challenge and then election challenge.
Yes, I am.
Let's go on a bunch of things here. I think the answer to challenges, not that you didn't do a great job, should be heard by an independent third
Okay.
party. And that's, at least it's a chance, because you have a vested interest in not reholding the election for this violation. By you, I mean the department. In terms of orientation, I'd love to see a mandated orientation, but I really think that each board, in addition or in coordination with what the department does, should be holding its own orientation and talking to its own candidates about what your commitment is, what to expect when you get on our council, what the jobs are that you're running for, because when you go to a regional thing, obviously they can't cover that for each council. So we do this, and our last term, we did not have one resignation the entire term. We kept our full board for 2 years, and that's part of the reason why. People knew what they were getting into. Well, I have to go, so I don't know if this is going to fit here exactly, but and you've heard this from me before. One of the big things that really should be addressed. We all talk about outreach. We all want to outreach. We want to get our candidates in. The theory that we'll go after our current board members and expect them to bring in other people to challenge them for their seats. You know, and I keep bringing it up, and it keeps coming out that way. It just doesn't happen.
I
You have
agree.
a couple of boards. I know part of the reason we have successful elections, we push the altruism of it, and we have all at-large seats, so everybody's running against everybody, so that there isn't that thing of getting somebody to run for your seat. You're not gonna recruit your opposition. Who in their right mind will do that? Okay, so there needs to be what I'm saying is you need to brainstorm, and I don't really have all the answers.
Well, I put down neighborhood council departments citywide, but your point is well made.
You need to come up with a different outreach strategy.
Yes.
Throw out at us to give us an ideas, because that one is,
Right.
you know,
We got it.
it's not great.
Sure.
Yeah, it's all outreach, but he was way before me.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Box, I would appreciate when I raise my hand and you see that I've raised my hand before other speakers, that I be afforded the courtesy to speak for me in the order that my hand was raised.
Well, I apologize if I took you
Now-
out of order.
Now that I have the floor here for a second, I want to go back to number 3.
Okay.
Number 3, there were instances where the people taking candidate information, whoever those independent third parties were, dissuaded potential board candidates from running for certain seats on the grounds that they don't want to run for that seat because there's competition, and if you lose it, you don't win, and switching them over to at-large seats. So we need to make sure that whoever is taking those applications and interviewing those people aren't interjecting their opinions about what that candidate should or should not do. Part of the other problem with the candidate filing is directly related to outreach. I know some neighborhood councils did good outreach. I know my home neighborhood council didn't get out the newsletter announcing the elections until December 28th, which was 13 days after the candidate filing period began and just a few days before it ended. So the other issue, again, was with outreach. My home council had 10 specialty seats, 11 at-large seats. There was no communication with the stakeholders about what documentation they would need to bring in order to vote on that rainy Friday or Saturday, March 1st. Fortunately for me, I went to the election place early. I went in and discovered that I couldn't vote for the property owner's seat unless I had proof that I owned a property in the neighborhood. Now, this was never told to me as a stakeholder, and I've been going to the meetings, for well over a year and a half at that point in time. So the fact that I didn't know that I needed to bring something in to vote for that seat as a resident property owner was a real problem in that part of the communication. So the stakeholders, one, need to know there's an election, and two, they need to know what they need to bring to vote. For an at-large seat, they just say, well, I go to school here, I go to church here, or whatever. But if we have a faith-based seat. We had a seat for Parks and Rec that received 3 total votes, period. That's because, and one of them didn't count because I didn't get my provisional information in within 3 days, which I felt was too short of a period to get in provisional information when I didn't know. And it was accentuated when a current board member behind me came in to vote and said, oh, I have to have proof that I'm a homeowner? Even a board member didn't know. So the communication about what needs to be done for specialty seats needs to be taken care of. Outreach to those specialty members is not being done by the board members that hold the specialty seats. We have a commercial business owner who's held the same seat since the neighborhood council was founded, but I don't know that that person ever goes to the other business owners and say, hey, we have a neighborhood council, would you like to run? I don't think that really happens. So these are some of my concerns that I see as a stakeholder with just that part of it.
So what would you suggest as a solution for getting the message out?
Requirement that the neighborhood councils send out their election newsletter a minimum of 90 days before the candidate filing period begins.
Okay.
And follow up with monthly emails that the candidate filing period is going to begin. Something that I also wanted to mention, you have a very good point, somebody who doesn't come to a meeting and runs. But I want to tell you that there are new board members up in the North Valley that never attended a board meeting and got elected. These are people that learned about their neighborhood councils from people like me that said, hey, this is going on. They said, well, why don't you run? And I have my reasons for not running for a board. And they said, you know what, I think I'll do it. And these people are now on the board and contributing to the neighborhood council in a very positive way. So, while I understand what Pete says, I don't really necessarily believe that somebody has to be there as long as they, in their heart, want to be on that neighborhood council to help the community. The other problem that I had on, as you talked about earlier, is these combining of events. Having a neighborhood council election at a street fair, having a neighborhood council election at a park on a Saturday when there's 27 other activities going on in the park building, or the street fair where there's hundreds, you're getting votes from people that just happened to be there that day, not because they even knew that your neighborhood council existed. The neighborhood council voting things that I liked the best were the ones that were at the school. It was there for the people to vote, and that's all it was there for, is the voting for the election. Because otherwise you're getting people vote who don't even know who the people are that are running. If you're getting secondary votes because you combined your election with a community gathering.
Okay, so you don't like election distractions?
It also is a parking problem. At the Granada Hills South election at Northridge Park, again, events, dance classes, basketball, small parking lot, it was full. I'm driving into the parking lot with my disabled mother to get her in to vote. It's raining, it's pouring, there's no handicapped spaces available, there's no regular spaces available. It was using common sense as to where the elections are held, I think, is a very important aspect, so that people are just coming to vote.
Great. So I've got parking locations, curbside voting, and yes, good.
And the outreach stuff.
And outreach. Yes, sir, Tony.
The outreach stuff. Because everybody's mentioned this, and particularly in communities like mine, maybe South Central, communities where the message needs to get out more. We need longer to recruit candidates. And to go to Ivan's point, whoever it may be, whether we have independent election administrators or not, the city needs to have an outreach worker go into that community, and that outreach worker needs to find candidates. Right now, by the time you talk to neighborhood councils about how they should be getting their act together to do outreach, you don't have any time to actually go to the church groups, go to the parks, go to the rec centers on your own as a community organizer and say, have you heard about neighborhood councils? You should be running. I think we need another month to go out there and, whoever does it, advocate about this neighborhood council election.
So just to play devil's advocate, can I? And then we're over here.
Oh, good. I like that.
So, the elections in 2016, if we're asking the question, have you heard about neighborhood councils then? What were we doing in 2015? I mean, the neighborhood council exists for a very specific purpose. And that question should have been a 10-year-old question by now, right? We're in Van Amber City's 5 years. Or North Hills East, I guess it's. But, so that question, we should be asking that. To leave that for here, yes, I always have pushed that this is our single greatest outreach opportunity of the year, elections. But if it's on the outreach worker to ask that question, it really is the big role of the neighborhood council to be engaging the community long before elections come along. Because that's kind of
But
at the
what
end
it's
of the
doing
cycle.
is it's speaking to the person who's not on the board.
I understand, Tony. Well, we got Mr. Summers first, and then we'll come back over here. He deferred.
Oh, it's me first.
Yeah.
I'm on the same line with him.
With-
I got really disgusted. In Granada Hills, we used to be really active really going, and we fought City Hall and won, we fought against the dump and won. I come back 4 years later, I learned that Outreach Committee had not had a meeting. The other group, they had not had a meeting in 3 years, the other one 5 years. I think you should tie their money to at least a part of it with just outreach, because it's really disgusting. And it's hard to see a little group of people controlling the whole neighborhood and saying they have a say, just because they don't want to do outreach. So instead of, looking into parks, looking into crime, we're buying a speaker for a helicopter helmet of a pilot for a LA PD, $500. They deny us $100 for an Easter egg hunt, okay? But it's all because of outreach, and I think we should go back to how it was. Half the budget outreach until you get a certain amount of people voting.
Okay, so I've got the outreach budget as a requirement.
Yeah, but it's a huge thing. It's all outreach. What good is all this other stuff if you're only talking about 10 or 12 people?
So I'm gonna put all year and elections.
All
Those are
the
separate
time,
things.
and on the website, all the time.
Yes, ma'am.
So I am a new member of the neighborhood council, and I am the renter alternate.
Okay.
Personally, I am very active in my community. I have a teenage son, and I've been active since preschool, created associations in our neighborhood, etc. I decided to run after I noticed that the neighborhood council existed, had never been to a meeting, and there was an announcement in our local newspaper that the renter seat was available. I agree with what this gentleman said over here. I agree with the other gentleman here. It's business as usual if you leave it up to the certain neighborhood councils to do outreach. In our particular neighborhood, it is the same people and the same interests and the same focus. I am on the outreach committee, and I have to fight and argue in order to get other people involved that outside of this group of the same old business as usual. And I feel that if this is money coming from the city, our taxpayer dollars, everyone should have the accessibility and the opportunity to be a part of the neighborhood council, not just filtering the same people in the same positions over and over and over.
Okay, so on that note then, as we got more hands? Was that?
I just want to add something to what Tony said. How many neighborhood councils last time actually did not have an election because they couldn't get enough candidates? 5?
Yeah.
I think those councils, there should be a team that goes in from the department or from the city. One should appoint their election committee. It should be outside people that go in and make that election happen, because that's not okay.
Okay.
All right.
So, we can stay with you for a minute? Rita Wilshire, right?
Yeah.
We can stay this for a minute. So you mentioned business as usual.
Right.
And then there's, in terms of solutions.
Well, what I was saying, I wanted to piggyback on what he said. Like he said, that it's just not logical or even human nature that people are going to go out and find other candidates to compete against their seats. So there should be another, a separate or independent outreach.
Okay.
If we're really going to engage the community and have everyone become involved, then it has to, we can't depend on the people who had these seats for years that are doing business as usual.
So 2 responses. Could you help me here?
Yes.
There are things the department could mandate, like you must spend $20,000 on key rings passed out of the street fair, or the department is going to come and do something. So there's 2 things. You can mandate that you do something. You can do it.
Yes.
Because there's been a suggestion for an outreach worker.
Right. I like that.
There's been a suggestion for a election for the ones that didn't rise to the occasion that someone inserts. So are you suggesting that someone do it for the council, do something? Or are you suggesting that the department mandate that the council does something?
There should be auditing. I mean, I believe that you should look at the neighborhood councils. You should see how engaged the community of this particular neighborhood councils are, you should mandate, have a third party, whatever is necessary. But I just don't believe that you should allow the neighborhood councils to just do business as usual.
Okay,
Same old,
so
same old.
is that outreach or outreach and elections or both?
Both.
Both, okay. Yes, Cindy?
I just wanted to emphasize the region outreach efforts. I think in this case, by the regions working together, a lot of this is overcome. For me, I've been in office for a long time, of course dropped and come back, but I'm constantly outreaching, looking for new leadership. But it's to be on a neighborhood council, I'm really pushing now that we need to bring credibility to the neighborhood councils. So it's not just pulling people off the street. So my point though with this is the region efforts, collectively working together. We are challenging each other, sharing ideas, and helping to get that bump up, and it works.
So we're at 2:20, so we're gonna take two more. Yes, sir?
Good afternoon. Pardon me for being late, but I had prior engagement on campus. We gotta remember, neighborhood councils are what the neighborhood wants. It starts at home, or in our own, on my street. And I sympathize with you guys that you're having this type of situation, because the neighborhood council that I'm involved with D-Man, downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council, for 13 years, we have been putting up with D-Man. So what we decided to do, we decided to form our own neighborhood council and separate from the one that's in existence that covers our neighborhood. Why? Because of what I'm hearing here right now. Okay? More specifically to the point, to reach out to look at people that want to represent the neighborhood, screw that. Waste my time and effort. If you don't want to be involved with where you're living, fine and dandy, stay inside. Me on the hand and next door, I know how to go out and do what needs to be done. So when your trash starts piling up and mine is empty, don't complain. See, this is what the neighborhood council is all about. It's all about us residents telling our city councils, representatives, what's happening and how they should operate on our behalf. Now, if we can't operate like we want them to operate, major problem, i.e. 5 councils that don't participate, but exist to collect monies. Monies that you guys, our guys, could be getting instead and put it in much greater use. Outreach is not an effort. It's a mandated, it's a from the heart thing. From the heart, like going to vote. Like going to vote.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Mr. Nicholas? So we're gonna decide when we're moving on the next one, but.
We have lots of points on the board, but I think the hard nut to crack, we all will agree, is outreach. And I'm maybe in a minority view, but I've always maintained that the city and the department should maintain some overall responsibility for outreach greater than it does. I think last time they did mention something in DWP bills, but it ought to be on the city television. There ought to be ads on the television channel. On the website, there ought to be banners announcing the general election season. They don't have to announce each neighborhood council. I think they ought to be on the council members' website. I just think that at a minimum amount of outreach would be that the city itself and the department could do, greatly supplemented by what the locals can do. But sometimes if the locals prove inadequate or not really interested in it, I think that minimum that the city and the department do would provide some backup and substitution and fill-in.
Okay, who should pay for it?
Well, I think it ought to come out of the department's overall budget. And I know the department's underfunded, just like we are underfunded, but we're getting ready for a new budget season, and as these things are talked about, I think it should be at the department level.
Okay, anyone else? Who should pay for it? Huh?
I disagree.
Okay, who do you think should pay for it?
I think the city should pay for it,
The city.
yes.
Well, that's the department, it's the same
Yes,
thing.
but not directly underdone, it shouldn't come out of their budget, it shouldn't come out of ours, it should be money that they have.
So anyone but us?
Yes.
City. Okay, anyone else?
Or us.